So, Roger Morehouse, Happy New Year.
Happy New
We
Year to you too.
Thank you very much. Just before Christmas, we did 21 days of Christmas book gifts, and we thought we would come back in 2026 with a special episode talking about the books that we, as entirely subjective
Mm.
history book buffs and fans of history and historical fiction, are most looking forward to in 2026. And there's some absolute belters on the horizon.
Bangers, I think they're
And
known.
yes, bangers, belters, bookish fireworks of all description.
Yeah.
Um, so should we get into it, Roger
Yes,
Morehouse?
let's. The first one that springs to mind is one I've actually blurbed on already, which is coming out fairly soon. It's coming out in February, which is The Death of Trotsky by Josh Ireland. I mean, I'm sure anyone that sort of, knows their Stranglers lyrics will know about Trotsky getting an ice pick that made his ears burn, if anyone remembers that line. But the Death of Trotsky, it is an amazing story because it's just, some of you might know, the Ramon Mercader, who was a Spanish minor aristocrat who turned into a Soviet assassin, was later given the Order of Lenin by Stalin for his action in tracking Trotsky down, in infiltrating Trotsky's household in Mexico City, and then ultimately sticking the aforementioned ice pick into Trotsky's head and killing him in quite a spectacular manner.
I am hugely looking forward to this book because I sort of was going to pitch something very similar to it
Right.
when I realised it was coming out. But one of the reasons I was going to pitch it, and I'll be fascinated to see if he gets this in there, is that I found loads of stuff in the CIA's in the Venona files, right? So the release of the documents that the American Secret Service had been reading of the Soviets, and about his mother,
showing your
mother, right?
historian's credentials here, are you? Are you, Senior? That's
Shush.
wow.
It's
Pick
almost
yourself
like
up, why
I've done
don't
my
you?
homework. Who knew? Shut up. You're so annoying. Anyway, so his mother, right, was
Yeah.
Mercader. Not only she was the first one, she was a kind of Soviet sort of illegal, and
Yeah.
it was her who effectively groomed her son to be a Soviet assassin. And then later on, when he's in jail, she launches this elaborate plot to try and spring him from prison, and actually makes it worse for him because then because the authorities find out about this and actually make the prison more secure. So I think it's an absolutely fascinating story because it's this weird Oedipal thing going on as well. So I hope all of that is in there. But yeah, it sounds absolutely brilliant. Can't wait to read that.
And it was really, really nicely done, to be fair. I mean, he might have, stolen an idea from under your nose, but I think he's done it justice because it's really nicely done. So, that's why I blurbed it. So yeah, that one I think will go well. So I'm looking forward to that. That's out 26th of February. And it is published by John Murray. So look out for that one. That's my first one. What about you? What's your first one?
So my first one is, let's stick with a kind of Sovietish theme. My first one is the new book by Antony Beevor, and he's doing Rasputin, which is actually really exciting.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't love, sinister Machiavellian figures of old? We love it because when one of my children was very, very small, the only way she would ever go to sleep is if I put her in a sling and danced to Rah Rah Rasputin and other Boney M songs.
And it had to be that one.
So, yeah. Well, no, it was also The Rivers of Babylon. It was those two.
Right.
So anyway, all of which is to say, Antony Beevor and Rasputin, I mean, what's not to love? I cannot wait for that. Now, that one is coming out on March the 12th. And unlike you, I didn't do my homework enough to look who the publisher was. So,
Well, I might be able to tell you. It's Weidenfeld Nicholson. There we go. Some of us have actually done our homework, but no, that's going to be really good. And I mean, Beevor's great. He weaves a lovely yarn, and it's a fabulous subject. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually interviewing him about the book for aspects of history. So look out for that in the spring as well. but it's bound to be. It's going to be everywhere
Amazing.
because it's Beevor, right? I mean, a Beevor
It's
book
Beevor and
is
it's Rasputin. It's like,
it's
yeah,
catnip. So it's going to be huge.
what's not
But
to like?
what's not to like? Exactly. Yeah. So that's that. Now
Okay, next up.
my next one is perhaps a little bit niche, but it is a niche that I'm very comfortable in, Senior. So I'm just gonna go with it anyway. It's by a chap called
Right.
Alexander Pluszkowski, who I checked up. I didn't know this, but I checked up. He's a lecturer at Reading University, and he's written a book called The Black Cross, which is a history of the Baltic Crusades. The Baltic Crusades, Senior. What do you think about the Baltic Crusades? Is that something? Is that sort of fixed point in your historical consciousness? I'm getting
Well,
no.
I mean,
That's the word I'm getting.
you're getting prevarication through wanting not to look entirely ignorant.
Right.
But carry on then, Morehouse.
Well,
What
Baltic
do we know about the
Crusades.
Baltic Crusades?
It's sort of the last of the great sort of crusading wave, that we had, the first through to the how many crusades were there? Even 5? Was it 5 crusades down to the Holy Land? And the sort of last wave of that crusading urge in Europe amongst Europe's sort of nobility and others was out to the east of Europe, and it was to Lithuania and the sort of the pagan Baltic, to try and convert all of those peoples up there. Lithuanians, they were sort of proto-Lithuanians. They were more sort of Balts and actually the original Prussians, to be fair. So it's up there. And they were all pagans up until really the mid-15th century, so very, very late. So this was the last sort of blast of that crusading zeal and that crusading brutality as well. And it's a really fascinating story, and it's obviously then becomes the sort of the origin story of the Baltic states and to a large extent of Poland as well. So it's a really interesting chapter of medieval European history, and it's one that I'm a bit more of a modernist, but I've got at least one foot in with my Polish hat on. I'm mixing metaphors horribly. My Polish hat on, I've got one foot in that. So now that book I think will be really interesting. I hope so. Anyway, might be a bit academic. It's Yale University Press, but they are also very good. They do some good stuff. They publish Helen Fry, for example. So I've got high hopes for that one. Alexander Pluszkowski's The Black Cross: History of the Baltic Crusades, 27th of January with Yale.
Listen, I'm going to put it on my to be read pile. I'm not convinced it will ever
be opened.
I mean, the scale of my reading challenge over the course of the year is not to be underestimated, with all the reviewing I do for the Times, and then for this podcast and my Spy Masters podcast, and
so you're saying you might not get to it.
I might not get to it, but we'll see. Anyway,
right. What's your next?
Oh, I am so excited about this one. So this is actually not out until September, but I'm so excited that I'm going to preview it early now. This is the brilliant Miranda Malins, The House of Cromwell. So Miranda has written a couple of historical fiction books that I completely adored about Oliver Cromwell's family. And she's come up with this idea for a non-fiction book, which is Thomas Cromwell and Oliver Cromwell and the family dynasty that made two of the most unbelievably fascinating characters of the whole of British history. So obviously I write modern history now, but my first love was really Civil War history. I love it. I love Cromwell. I love everything about it. And Miranda, as well as being a very talented person, I think she's got a PhD in and focuses on the Civil War stuff. So she really, really, really knows what she's about.
She is quite annoyingly clever, isn't she?
Brilliant style. She's so clever, and she's such a wonderful writer, and she really knows her onions. And it's a period that I adore, and two of the biggest, baddest characters. And I think the fact that Thomas and Oliver Cromwell are related and managed to get to the top in a time of kind of extraordinary class divisions is unbelievable and utterly noteworthy. And this is one of those books where you think, oh my gosh, I can't believe nobody's written it. Because it's extraordinary. So can't wait. Yeah, September. I'm not quite sure of the date, but September, House of Cromwell. Miranda Malins, pre-order it as soon as you can.
And that's not really been done in
top
that
tip.
way. I mean, there's obviously those the big Cromwells, as in the Cromwell of the Civil War, and the Cromwell of Henry VIII's court, but they haven't been tied together like that before, have they? So that is, as far as I know, anyway.
Not in this way.
So that's really quite novel, isn't it?
So Oliver Cromwell was, I think, Thomas Cromwell's great grandnephew. So those of you who have read Wolf Hall, and if you haven't, I mean, who even are you and why are you listening to this podcast? But if those of you who've read Wolf Hall will remember Richard, who's one of the brutal but fair, who's one of the young men who hangs around Thomas Cromwell. So Oliver is his great grandson. So, it's how the whole family ties together, how those particular class structures work, the legacy of Thomas feeding into Oliver. I mean, it just, I can't wait. Can't wait.
Right. My next one is, China being, one of the sort of the major poles in our multipolar world that seems to be developing under Mr. Trump. Frank Dikötter has put out a new book. It's coming out in February, 12th of February. He's a real, China hand. He knows his stuff. He actually lectures at University of Hong Kong, as well as I think Stanford in the US. And he has done a book called Red Dawn over China, which tells the story of the Chinese Communist Party coming to power in that period between their foundation in 1921, I think it was, and 1949 when they come to power. So that's his frame. He's done stuff like the Cultural Revolution before. He's a real expert on China, as I said, and that will be fascinating. He himself, his last book was called How to Be a Dictator, and it was slightly light-hearted, but a look at various dictators through history, from sort of Mengistu to Gaddafi and various others, which was really interesting, and actually kind of interesting to try and frame what common traits dictators tend to have. So that was a really interesting book, and he writes really well, very, very knowledgeable. So that one, very much looking forward to. Red Dawn over China, and it's with let me just check. Bloomsbury on the 12th of.
Can I look it up?
All right.
Yeah. Okay. No, fine. But maybe people care.
Okay.
Who published it? The publishers care. So I read his book on the Cultural Revolution, and it was brilliant. I think that an important book. I think one that I think we all need to read, probably.
Yeah. Indeed.
And it's I make this joke almost every time, but if our Chinese overlords are using their AI to listen in on this conversation, I, for one, am looking forward to their new the new world.
Alexa's definitely
so I'll read
listening.
this book in preparation. Definitely listening.
So what's the next book? What's the next book that Alexa has asked you to recommend?
Yeah. So I'm going to go with some historical fiction, because obviously that's
your bag.
our bailiwick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are two books I'm really looking forward to. White River Crossing, which is out on the 12th of February. Now, this is from Ian McGuire, who wrote The North Water a few years ago, which was just a stunning book. I think they made it into a TV series. I'm not sure. I don't really watch TV. But he writes these really dark, menacing, creepy, psychologically disturbed things, normally involving boats and misery and despair, and absolutely can't get enough of it. And this one is set in the 18th century. So a gold prospector comes into the Hudson Bay company and says, "Look, I found gold," and then everybody gets really excited, and they go off into the great cold wilderness, and obviously absolute misery and mayhem ensues. So I'm massively looking forward to that, and that's one to read under the duvet probably. 12th of February.
Wow.
Yeah, Ian McGuire. And if you haven't read North Water, do read that. It's absolutely brilliant. Really good writer.
Sounds fun. Like the story of the Northwest Passage.
Similar kind of dark deeds at sea, although this one I think is dark deeds on land.
Yeah. But also in snowy wildernesses.
Really. Yeah. like, so so I suspect the characters will be fighting,
Yeah.
you know, cold bears and
Yeah.
their own
Yeah. I mean, it's a
horrific
bit like
psyches.
being in
That's
the
kind of interesting.
Chilterns up until yesterday.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
really
Were you
was.
fighting your own dark
Yeah.
psyche?
Yeah. Right. So that was that one. And
Yeah.
then the next one I have is Katja Hoyer, who has, risen like a large firework. Hopefully not to explode in midair, but she has risen very swiftly. And her last book on the GDR, Beyond the Wall, was very, very well received and was really, quite brilliant. And her new one is on Weimar, and it's coming out on May the 7th. And what she's doing in that book is to combine the history of the city of Weimar with its eponymous republic, the German Republic between 1918 and 1933, as we all know, that precedes Hitler's Reich. So effectively, she is telling the story of the Weimar Republic through the city of Weimar. So this, the street fighting, the intellectual sort of ferment that in a sense, both gave rise to Nazism and also tried to resist Nazism. So all of that stuff. I mean, it's quite imaginative and I think quite a bold way of trying to do that. The story of the Weimar Republic has been reasonably well told over the years, but to actually tie it down to Weimar itself is very novel. I've never seen that before. Usually Weimar is just mentioned because of the Constituent Assembly, which is, has to decamp to Weimar because of violence in Berlin, hence the name Weimar Republic, but then it sort of disappears from history. I mean, it's got Buchenwald concentration camp is not far away, so it does occasionally sort of enter the narrative, but it's a pretty minor German city generally, so it's quite a bold thing to do, and I have no doubt that Katja will pull it off because she does the hard yards and she's a very good writer, so I'm looking forward to that one immensely.
I think it's such a great idea. I mean, that kind of micro history, giving you a kind of sharper perspective on the wider history. I mean, as we've talked about many times before, the whole question that people ask themselves about the rise of Hitler is how,
Yeah,
why? And looking at that through the lens of one specific town
yeah,
and the failures, of the governance that go before and the cultural strands and the kind of, I think that's a brilliant idea. I can't wait. I think that's really
yeah.
great.
Should be really good. So I'm looking forward to that. So Katja Hoyer, Weimar, Life on the Edge of, I think it's Life on the Edge of Disaster. It's called. Is that right? Life on the Edge of Catastrophe. Sorry, Katja. Life on the Edge of Catastrophe.
Yeah, even worse than
Yeah,
disaster. I mean, that's going
yeah,
on for me.
yeah. So what's your next one?
Okay, so my next one, my last one is The House of Bolin
Olin.
by Tracy Borman. So this is really interesting. This is a historical novel released in April by the very well known and very well respected historian Tracy Borman. Now, one might think maybe we've had all the novels about the Bolins that we can possibly stomach, but you know what? People just love they love this. They love this. They can't get enough of it. Publishers can't get enough of it. That's for a reason. People, read this stuff in droves. And, it is a fascinating story. It's one of those linchpins in moments in history where sex and politics combine in an explosive way to create all sorts of important ruptures. So, you can see why people can't get enough of it. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what she does with it as a novelist, because writing fiction and writing history are two very different disciplines. I have read historians who haven't quite made the leap to being novelists, even though they really know their stuff. And I've read some who take to it with aplomb, right? So I will be utterly fascinated to see how Tracy manages this story
Yeah.
and brings new life to it. It will be absolutely fascinating.
And is it? Do you think
So
it's?
yeah, looking forward to.
Is it kind of a fiction analogy in a way in terms of approach to what Miranda Malins is doing with the Cromwells? Is it looking at the house as in, the wider family? Is that the gist, do you think?
So yeah, my understanding of it is that it starts with Thomas Boleyn, Anne Boleyn's father, and sort of brings in the whole family, and it's centered around Hever Castle. Hever is where the Boleyns are, and it's kind of central to their story. And as I understand it, she's using the house as the kind of central, the holding thing for the whole book, right? So characters come in and out from Thomas to Anne to Mary and everywhere else. So yeah, we'll see.
And Hever Castle, of course, which still stands and is a remarkable place. I'm sure you've been.
I have been, and I think so. Tracy Borman is the historian for the historic royal palaces. So she knows her stuff as well about like houses and how they fit into history and how the very bricks of them can hold those stories. So I think she's going to be great, but it will be fascinating to see.
We'll see if it works out. Well, I mean, there's one last one that we probably should mention, isn't there, Antonia?
There is.
Or should we just wrap it up
there? The opposite. Novelist turned historian.
Yes, indeed. Novelist turned historian. Your good self.
So can she pull it off?
Well, can she? That's the open question everyone will be asking themselves as they read your words. Come April, 9th of April, your book Stalin's Apostles is coming out. The Cambridge Five and the Making of the Soviet Empire. Now, this is a very fresh take on the Cambridge Five story. So putting, the Cambridge Five story, I suppose, back into its, geopolitical and ideological context, from which it's become slightly sort of strangely divorced, isn't it? It's become a sort of a class old boy network story in the English language historiography, and you that was something that ticked you off, so you decided to put it back into its ideological and geostrategic framework, which is genius, because that's what it was, and to look at the sort of human cost of those of that espionage and those betrayals, isn't it? That's the gist of it, essentially.
That's the gist of it. Yeah, I kind of asked myself the question: what did Stalin want from them? And the answer to that question is he wanted their help in furthering his end, which consistently throughout that period that they were spying for him was the creation of a Bolshevik world, right? Pushing those borders outwards and beyond the Soviet Union. And that's true before the war, as you know very well from your brilliant book, Devil's Alliance. It's true during the war and it's true after the war. And they're there, but helping him in any way they can, feeding him information all the way. So it's about that. And it's about the fact that the people who actually felt the brunt of their betrayals were therefore actually the people of Eastern and Central Europe who end up, under Stalin's yoke.
Yeah.
Because I think we've come to think of it as a sort of almost victimless crime, the Cambridge Five. And if there was a victim, the victim was the certainties of the establishment. And in a way, that's not so bad. Like, who cares that, the certainties of, a bunch of kind of
the old boy network
were disrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of that's there in the novel. And the novel,
oh
my God, in the work of serious history that I've written. So that's all there. But I try and broaden it out and widen it out and look at the bigger picture of what they were actually doing, and concentrate a bit less on the kind of reform club angle.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's very exciting. It's coming out in April, as you said, and fingers crossed people like it.
Well,
let us know.
I mean,
let us know. Well,
it is going to be it's going to be a highlight, definitely. And I know from having read snippets of it over the last couple of years that you've been writing it and so on. It is going to be brilliant. I'm sure. I'm absolutely convinced. It's a great new take. It's and I know you've done the hard yards because as I said, we've sort of largely sort of followed each other's progress with the last couple of books, haven't we? So, you know, I know you've done the hard yards with research and stuff. So, and it's a really fresh take. And like you say, I think that rather myopic view, the conventional view of the Cambridge Five, that's just sort of places them in the old boys club and, you know, essentially as sort of foppish, you know, middle class communists, idealists who do, and it's a victimless crime. It's nonsensical when you actually put it back into its wider context. You know, it becomes something much more sinister, much darker, and we should do that. That's what historians should be doing. We should be looking at these subjects and saying, no, it really isn't like that. It's not the way it's been portrayed. It's like this. And I think you do that with bells on. So, you know, all power to you.
Well, thank you, Roger. I mean, obviously you have to say that, otherwise I'd kill you. But I think hopefully other people will say it too. It was nice to see that the Times had named it as one of their books to watch in 2026. So
brilliant.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
I'm sure it'll go well. Hopefully there'll be lots of festivals. I know we're doing an event, aren't we? But hopefully there'll be lots of festivals and lots of stuff to get it out there. So we look forward to all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
So 2026, a top year for reading and a top year for me.
It's all about you.
It's all about me. Buy my book. The other 9 we've just spent 25 minutes talking about. Sod them. Just buy mine.
Shameless.
Anyway,
shameless.
So we're back in a couple of weeks with discussing some more brilliant books. So, you know, do give us a follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, all the rest of that jazz. And we'll see you next time.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.